As a dungeon master, one of the most satisfying things about all the prep work you do is lore building for your campaign. It's exciting to sit down and just imagine all the different places that could exist in your world, all the different deities and organizations and whatever it is, nations, kingdoms. All that stuff is great. But what can be a little disheartening is when you put in all this effort into something that the players aren't excited about. And I think the difference between making a campaign world that is a little bit duller, I guess, I don't think that's the right word necessarily to say, because just because someone else doesn't appreciate what you find exciting doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not necessarily the best fit for that table in that situation. And really, there's kind of just one mindset shift that I'm going to share with you that's going to get your players excited about the world that you build. And it's actually really simple. So stick around. I'm going to show you how to do it. How's it going, everybody? I'm Jake from JNJtabletop, and the very first thing that I want to plant in your mind as you begin this process, this journey of world building, is to get the players involved. So when you have a homebrew world that you're considering making, it's good to have a few ideas, few concepts. Maybe it's just a theme like, hey, we're going to do some kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy ragtag style game. Okay, that's great. Then talk to your players. And the reason why this is significant is because if the players are involved in this process, they're going to give you hooks that they're already interested in to flesh out. And we'll take an example real quick. So player A, let's call them Jim, wants to play a draconic sorcerer. Just ask Jim, how did your sorcerer get their magic? Was it some kind of like deal that they struck? Did a dragon somehow heal them? And what was that? What does that look like to you? Now all of a sudden Jim is going to start putting together things that are important to him in this setting for you, and then you just flesh that out. And Jim is really excited about this copper dragon that has this relationship with Jim's family, and it just seems like generation after generation has magic because of it. And you can flesh out all those details. And then all the other characters and players will probably be much more likely to be interested in Jim and his character, because I'm just going to assume, everybody's kind of friendly with each other, and that's just a good thing. But we actually have a video on if your game is healthy. Maybe you should check that out too. But that's the place I want you to start this process. The next tip I have for you is much more practical, I guess. Yeah, practical, that's a good word. So what I want you to do is when you put together something in your world that you want to present to your players, come up with a couple of hooks, 2, 3, whatever it may be, but do it at the end of a session or towards the end of a session. And the reason why I say this is because after that happens and the sessions, even you're just packing up, you're putting your dice away, your DM screen, all that stuff, and everybody's just kind of talking about what's going on in the game. If they're not talking about one of the things you presented, you could ask them right there, and all of a sudden now you have direction as to what to prep, which should just make your life a little easier in that way. But you know that it's what they're interested in. So you're only building what they're interested in. You don't have to guess. Because because they told you. It's very simple. It's very simple. I guarantee you it's going to work. So the next tip might seem sort of obvious in a way, but follow me here. So it really is just keeping the lines of communication open. And I'm not talking about like you and like one other player dominating like your group DM or text message or whatever you use, because that just makes people tune out and it's obnoxious. But if you have a one-on-one message, you could say, hey, it seemed like your character was interested in the doodad by the thingamajig and, right next to the whatchamacallit. And they might go, yeah. And I was all excited about it because I thought it might be such and such and it could tie into this. And they start telling you all of the things about their character and how they see their character interacting with the world. And now you have all sorts of lore that you can flesh out. You can provide history behind the doodad. that would make it something that would be interesting for the character and the player to just want to attach to. And you also know the kinds of stories they're looking to tell, which is a huge thing these days. Like, a lot of players are much more interested in the stories that they're telling than necessarily like the adventures that they're going on. I know that's kind of together. That's a little abstract, but what I'm trying to say is players these days, they get very excited about that kind of stuff, and really they're almost doing the work for you. And it's kind of guaranteed to work because, again, just from like the other thing, like when one player gets excited about it, everybody's going to get excited about it, at least on some level. So just make sure you're checking in with each of the players at your table, and you're going to have a wealth of lore that you can put together that's going to be meaningful. It's going to be significant. Everyone's going to be invested because, well, frankly, they all had a hand in it, didn't they? And you're just kind of going with the flow. And sure, you can develop much more if you want, because, well, if that's something you enjoy, that's great, but you got to be careful of burnout. And if you're interested in finding tips of how you can avoid burnout and actually how you can get your players involved in helping you in that process, you should check this video out right over here. And then, of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Let me know what you thought about the video. Do you have any other tips that help you when you're putting together lore? I want to hear about it. Take care, everybody.